The world unfolds differently for each of us. Why? Where do the rules come from? Within each of us, there is a unique philosophy shaping our thoughts, beliefs, feelings, worldviews, and actions. This is Inner Dialogues with Ecem, an introspective space for curious souls and minds. This is where you get to understand your individual philosophy that writes the script of your life. This is where we unveil the inner wisdom that guides you. Yep, that was your inner sage knocking the door. Let's go and chat with him. Hi, it's Ecem. Welcome back to Inner Dialogues with me. Today's episode is gonna be again me following the thread of inspiration and contemplation. The root of this, again, is from a conversation I had with a friend of mine. I'm really looking forward to episodes where I'm going to invite friends with whom I can have deep conversations as our default mode of interacting. But for now, you have to bear with me and my questioning mind. During the weekend, I had a lovely reflective conversation with a friend who recently finished reading Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. And as always, we were discussing about our reading experiences. She shared a couple of quotes with me and her feelings and thoughts about them. I'll just drop the quotes from the very beginning and see where they will take us. She shared a passage in which the characters were talking about the meaning of life, especially from an artistic point of view. She said, "Meaning is out there, but we don't see it. Meaning exists, but it's just hidden." And then she went on reading another passage about intimacy and knowledge. I'll be sharing the whole quote in the description, but for now, I want to focus on how Virginia Woolf described intimacy. She said, "Intimacy is knowledge." At that moment, when I heard about this simple statement, I was like, what? And then my friend shared her thoughts and it stirred something within me. I'm going to take you back to that moment in which I recorded the following voice message to my friend. When you were talking about it until the point you said intimacy is knowledge, this idea was being formed in my mind from the very first time you said, like, meaning is out there, we just don't see it, but it is there always. It made me think like this image. I don't know how to tell it. We look at this person, or we look at the environment we live in, and we are surrounded by all the meaning, all the things that we have to know, all the answers, but we don't see it. And sometimes I think that the answer that we are looking for, or let's say we lost a thing, and the thing that we are looking for is smiling back to us and looking at us, like smiling, because we don't see it. And I think when you say meaning, I thought about the same, like especially when you get to know a person for the first time, and like in our relationship as well, in our friendship as well, you have to invest time in it, you have to invest your energy in it, and as much as like more time and energy you invest, the meaning depicts itself, but it was already there. It was literally literally inside of the person standing in front of you. So it wasn't the case that you created it. It's just that with the intimacy, it depicted itself. It became to the surface and it became visible to you. So when you said that intimacy is knowledge, I was like, yes, it is. Because, like, as I said, investing time, investing energy, investing your understanding is intimacy. And yes, it can be physical as well, but there's so much layers underneath it, right? Investing time, energy in your understanding is intimacy. Intimacy is knowledge. But there is more. My friend also shared that the message of this book is about the meaning of life, not in being big things, but being in intimacy. And intimacy is made of daily life, little things in the daily life, she said. And when she said that, I thought, what is the most basic way of intimacy for me? I think it is talking, or no, maybe it is less than talking, which is looking in the eye, like without any words, just looking in the eye of another person. Isn't it the most basic and simple thing one can ever do in a relationship or even with a foreigner? The second simplest way of building intimacy for me is definitely talking and speaking. As human beings, that is the most basic thing, I think. But through that simplicity, I realized I've been able to build so much complexity and depth and intimacy. Let's go a bit more tangible here. When I shared my previous thoughts about intimacy and simplicity with my friend, she said and shared such wise and inspiring things back to me. She said, when I used to visit my friend who lives abroad, the things that I wanted to do with him were very daily things. I wanted to just spend time with him in his daily life. Like, I loved looking at him cook as I just sat on the couch because it was a normal routine for him. And the next day he had to go to work. I don't know, but there's something about, sharing your daily life, I guess, or daily in the sense of small things with the other person that I think really creates intimacy. And I think it's a real treasure as knowledge. Wonderfully said, isn't it? When she said witnessing those small moments in the person we are in a friendship or relationship with, it created a hug from my heart and reminded me of my relationship with my brother. Again, I'm going to let you hear my words from that specific moment in a voice message. I thought about my past relationship, but as well as my brother, since he was born. And I was always curious. I've been always curious about the way he behaves outside of the home. But one of the very first things that I remember telling my mom constantly was that, and to this day she still tells me, I used to tell her, I wonder how my brother's sound will be, his voice will be when he speaks, like when he's like when he says his first words. And then I used to tell her, and then it changed into, I wonder how his voice will be once he's a teenager. And then it turned into, I wonder how he'll look like when he has a mustache and a beard, and many, 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 many more things. And I just wanted to see him in his classroom. I wanted to see him playing his with his friends. And now I have bigger aspirations for it, because now he's becoming a young adult. So, but I never thought about this as an intimacy. But this is intimacy, and I want to witness every little small moments of the people that I love. I wonder how my dad looks like when he's in a meeting. I wonder how, I don't know. I remember me being very curious, me wanting to see my ex-boyfriend when he is watching a movie at home, when he is with his family, when he is on the way to meet me. It's just these things. Wow, I never thought about this as an intimacy, but it warmed my soul and heart now, thinking in that way. Does this resonate with you? Have you ever thought of intimacy as witnessing and sharing small little moments with the people we love? Have you ever thought of intimacy as knowledge through sharing simple mundane things and moments? The intimacy I experience when I share things. The intimacy through mind and heart, not just through body. Back at uni, I remember when our professors asked a question to us during the class. No one would say anything in some cases. Do you know which cases? And the times that the answer was obvious. Well, I cannot think of anything right now, but even questions like, is rain wet? Or can you fly? The rhetorical questions, right? When the answer is obvious. We value complexity because if something is complex, then that must involve a lot of meaning. It can be the case, by the way, but it can be also the case when something is simple as it is. It can be as much as powerful in its meaning. Especially when studying philosophy, you tend to think that all answers must be deducted from these complex and lengthy ontological, ethical, and epistemological arguments. This can create the tendency to neglect the obvious, simple, and basic answer and question the truth of simplicity. Oh, okay. Here is something that actually happened in the ontology course that I took in my last term. The professor wrote the following sentence onto the board. Rose is a rose, is a rose, is a rose. Don't think too deeply about it. And then he asked how many times the word rose was repeated. A deep silence, followed by a deeper one. It got awkward, and finally, the professor said, just give me the damn answer. Tell me. Yes, it is the obvious one. 4. What is the most simple and basic way of sharing for you? Sharing a moment with someone, sharing a common idea, sharing your life, sharing difficulties. I can also argue that the most obvious way can sometimes be distorted because we tend to look for complexity, and it can be quite challenging to find a simplicity at the moment. Now I'm asking for myself, what is the most simple way of intimacy for me? In which ways do I create intimacy and therefore knowledge of myself and of others? I previously said eye contact. I still think it is. This made me realize and try to remember the unique eye contact moments. When I used to live in Copenhagen for my Erasmus year, I used to cycle everywhere. That was the main transportation in Copenhagen. And I realized that it creates so much intimacy with the city you live in. I remember I used to describe cycling in Copenhagen as being able to touch the city that I live in. Like think, the main transportation in most big cities is mostly via car, bus, train. It is mostly inside of a machine, a closed environment that stops your interaction with your surroundings. But cycling was the reverse. You can literally touch the air, you can feel the speed, the cold, the hot, the busyness. You can hear the sounds much louder. You live in the city you cycle in. I think this is also intimacy. Intimacy is not only with people, I believe. There is intimacy with books for me, intimacy with a concept, a feeling, intimacy with architecture, ancient science, intimacy with a city. I get to know these things by investing time, my time, energy, and my understanding of them, which creates intimacy between me and that particular thing. Cycling was my means of intimacy with the city of Copenhagen. When you cycle, There might be occasions where you have to stop at red lights, of course, and stay right next to another cyclist. They would be literally an arm's length away from you, if not closer. And sometimes your eyes catch each other and you may smile slightly. Isn't this a form of intimacy? A deeper but still as simple as our human nature form of intimacy for me is speaking. Words, right? The most valuable, simple yet complex things we can create, I think. Speaking is knowing ourselves and of others. Speaking leads to intimacy and knowledge. I'm personally someone who shares stuff only with certain people, the people that I can form and I want to form an intimacy with. Intimacy is a precious thing. Knowledge is a precious thing. Acquiring knowledge of ourselves and others through intimacy is an intuitive place, I think. If a fleeting glance, a shared laugh, or the nodding of your head simultaneously creates a connection with that person, that could be the start of a thread of intimacy. As we get deeper into our intimacy, from glances to conversations, each layer unveils a new facet of ourselves, of the person, the world, and the concept we are connecting with. I don't know if Virginia Woolf meant this, but this is my take on intimacy as knowledge. Let's not forget the second part about intimacy, which is being made of daily things. As we discussed, we tend to seek wisdom in complexities. We may search for profound meanings in grand gestures, philosophical debates, and the complexities of life. But what if wisdom and knowledge lie in the simple intimacies through heart and mind? Seemingly ordinary acts like cooking, laughing, crying, speaking, cleaning, whatever. These seemingly ordinary acts can be the wellspring of knowledge, connection, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Can intimacy get any simpler than the following morning that I experienced recently? When I woke up, I saw my brother asleep. I kissed him. I opened the window next to my bed. I saw my reflection in the window and smiled at myself. I looked through the window as I was sitting on my bed, and as the sun was touching my legs and my face, I looked at the leaves of our wine. They were looking like a bed made from green leaves in a way that I wasn't able to see the ground underneath it. I sat there for a while. I was experiencing and feeling the intimacy of the house I live in, of the sun touching my skin, of my brother sleeping, of the nature I was surrounded with. It was simple. It was intimate. It was knowledge, because I remember to this day. I will leave you with this. Intimacy is knowledge. Intimacy is made of daily things. Meaning exists out there, but we don't see it. But what if we invest time, energy, and understanding through staying simple and intuitive? How would meaning depict itself to us? How would that make us intimate with every moment we live in, with every version of ourselves, and with others? As our conversation for today fades away, may you find your echoes of it that resonate within you. Thanks for listening today. This is Inner Dialogues with Ecem, a place where you discover your inner you, a place where you belong. Take care.